Good evening and welcome to the Taco Society Presents. We're on the road. Tonight's show is going to be from Bristol, Rhode Island at a conference called NECON, which is the Northeast Writers Conference. We're going to have an interview with Matt Bechtel and Sarah Kalia, who's going to explain what NECON is, their involvement with NECON and NECON's history. And then we're going to go to a guest of honor panel with Chuck Wendig, Shannon McGuire, Paul Tremblay, and John McElveen, who's going to moderate the panel. You'll notice we all have t-shirts here, big bad on it, that's the NECON logo, and that was designed by Eric Nunnally and Bracken McLeod. So keep an eye out for that, and enjoy the show. Good evening, welcome to the Taco Society Presents. For this episode, we're at NECON, we're on the road again, and I'm sitting here with Matt Bechtel, Sarah Kalia, and we're going to talk about NECON, what it means, what it's about, who comes, and we're going to go a little bit into its past and talk about some of the guests that come and some of the cool things that NECON does. It's a conference where a lot of horror writers go, and dark fiction and speculative fiction authors come. We have panels, we have lots of coffee clashes, and probably stronger, a little bit stronger than coffee clashes, but we do have a lot of fun here. And what I'll do is I'll start with Sarah and say, why don't you give us a little bit of background about NECON?
Well, back in 1979, actually, my father, Bob Booth, was on the committee for World Fantasy. And at that point in time, the colleges were basically reaching out to people to fill their dorms for the summer. So they reached out to him.
Good idea.
Yeah. So back in 1979, and I don't remember who it was at Roger Williams. Roger Williams was a college back then, not a university. Called him up, contacted him, and asked him to if they would be interested in doing World Fantasy at Roger Williams. And I said, no, that's just too big, but maybe I can come up with something. So he talked to Charlie Grant and talked to Don Grant and said, I got this offer. They want $25 for the weekend.
Holy cow.
$25.
Is it still $25?
I wish. No, but they asked for $25 for the weekend. That included room and board and food and the panel space and the art show.
Wow.
And so he talked to his friends, and they said, yeah, let's do this. So the first one, I believe there were maybe only 70 people.
Did they meet triple digits? I thought it was below triple digits.
Yeah, definitely didn't meet triple digits in the first year, but you know,
it was a start.
It was a start, and Stephen King was actually the third guest of honor.
But I don't mean to jump in and correct you, but before Charlie Grant, before Don Grant, before anyone else, Bob spoke with someone else about this, your mom.
Oh, yeah. Mary
Booth.
True indeed.
Who has an unblemished track record of making good decisions, but thank God your dad talked her into that one.
Was that a little bit of a struggle at the time?
No,
good.
no, but
Well, she's such an important part of it now. To think back
always has been.
all those years
Always has
ago,
been.
yeah.
Dad was always the person who would, you know, get people, and in the beginning, and Mom has always been the
Rock.
Yeah.
The rock.
pretty much.
Mhm.
Yep.
So it sounds like you had some great guests. You just mentioned Stephen King.
Yes.
King was, I believe, 3, because, and I'm sure we'll get into, the greatest honor NECON can bestow is roasting someone.
I have that listed, yeah.
We'll get there. Stephen King is the one person who is first and last and only by coincidence, the year he was guest of honor, was also the roast victim. He was on, in Bob's famous words, where we weren't 100% sure he was going to come back, so we had to get him while we could.
And it's really worse than it sounds, because when you roast somebody, this isn't a light Dean Martin roast. This is,
you have a lot of creative people here with a lot of stories to tell that the victims would prefer everyone somehow forgot, and so we make sure they don't.
Don't forget, yes. And you'll never hear these stories on tape or really outside of Nikon, because what happens at Nikon stays at Nikon.
Vegas stole that from us.
They did. If you ever get a chance to come down and see what a roast is like, you will be shaking your head. You'll be laughing, but when it's all over, you'll be shaking your head and say, "What did I just sit through?" It's unbelievable. And Stephen King was the recipient of a roast.
King, that is. I think the first roast victim was actually Don Grant, the publisher of Don Grant Books, who was also like your dad's mentor. Your dad worked for Don for years.
At Providence College, yeah.
Because Bob read a Don Grant book and got so pissed off by all the typos, like wrote him and said, "Hey, what are you doing here?" And he said, "Okay, if you can help, come work for me and make sure this doesn't happen again." And that was the beginning of their friendship. That was the beginning of his friendship and their long relationship.
So that was 35 years ago when all this stuff. Were you even born?
Yes, I was 3. Yeah.
3? Oh,
yes.
geez.
Yep.
So you've grown up with Nikon.
Absolutely, yes. Yep. And my daughter's also grown up with Nikon. So
Jillian?
yes. Yep.
Otherwise known as chairperson, Nikon 40, waiting for the crown.
And you can't wait, right?
Exactly.
So that's great. You're up to year 3, and you've had even just as prestigious guests as Stephen King. Well, I say just as prestigious. You had
Peter Straub,
Peter Straub, which would be
Neil
fantastic.
Gaiman, Graham Joyce, the list goes.
We already mentioned Charles L. Grant, Les Daniels, Alan Ryan, Robert McCammon, F. Paul Wilson, Tom Mangione.
Oh, just the cream of the crop. Just the best in horror and dark fiction that you could imagine.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's great. I've been coming in, this is my 6th year at Nikon.
Newbie.
And I'm still a newbie. But I gotta say, it's the one convention that I really look forward to, not only because great authors you get to see and friends that you make here, but it's so laid back, it's so family oriented. You spend I spend 4 days here, but you spend the 4 days more or less really having a good time. I mean, no one's forcing you to go to panels, no one's forcing you to participate in things, but you want to go anyways. You want to go, you want to listen, you want to learn, and you learn a lot.
Another name.
That was, sorry, go ahead.
Another name to drop, who's not just has been guest of honor and is such a great author, but is not just here every year, is part of the Nikon committee and has done and still does so much for us, is Christopher Golden.
Oh yeah.
And Chris said Nikon is the one convention where there is no table between the author and everybody else. I remember L.L. Source, who won a Stoker for his first novel a couple years ago. I remember his first year when he was a newbie and a wallflower, and he's being all quiet and it's off to the side of the quad, and I had like helped him move his bags into his room so he knew me, just because I introduced myself. He's, Matt, is that, oh my God, is that Jack Ketchum? I went, yeah. Oh my God, it's like, what, you haven't met him yet? Hey, waved him over, and he sat and talked for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
That's just that spirit when you talk
It
about
is.
a family. It's we're all here together, and you can,
Absolutely.
you know, bestsellers and people still, you know,
Different
pitching there,
novels.
looking at their first novels. They'll hang out and have a drink and talk writing and business and everything in between.
Well, that was Dad's
So,
idea.
and that was your-
He capped it. He said, I don't want more than 200 people here.
200.
Ever. Basically, it's just so that people could talk to anybody that they wanted to. It wasn't a line waiting out the door to speak to your favorite author, and really just an intimate setting for writers and artists.
And it
together.
offers so much. Like I said before, I mean, the panel, I mean, never mind getting a chance to speak to Jack Ketchum, you know, about how he constructed his novel or you know, any underlying themes, and can you tell me how to do this or how to plot that? Just the panels, the little coffee clashes that you guys started this year. And I'm gonna just give a few of the titles of the ones we have this year, the ones you have this year. The Horror of the Future, Making Science Fiction Scary. Next Time, Try Not to Suck. Editor's Horror Stories. Almost Human, The Art of the Monster. Scary Second Worlds, Horror in the Fantasy Landscape. It Only Laughs When I Hurt, Comedy and Genre. And there's so much that if somebody's really wanting to learn how to write, they can come here and learn.
Yeah, we have a great programming committee. Jack Haringa and Nick Kaufman, Craig Gardner, and Chris Golden, and Matt, and Mike Myers. They work together basically all year round to make sure that we have great programming for.
The program is fantastic. You guys do a wonderful job.
And by the way, since you name dropped to bring all this together, Craig Shaw Gardner, who's been part of Econ from the beginning.
They're all 35 years.
Yes,
and
he's
part of
been
the
here.
sold his first story here at Econ at a urinal next to Charles L. Grant, who turned, it was like 2 in the morning, and they're standing there, and Charlie turned to him and said, "Oh yeah, I got your story, I loved it, I'm gonna be buying it." That was...
Jeez. And I bet you a lot of that goes on that we don't know about, we don't hear about. Deals are made, friendships are obviously made, and deals are made later on from those friendships. I just want to go over the interview I'm going to do, well, not the interview, but the taping I'm going to do this afternoon. Talk about the guests of honor. And what I'd like you to do is not only name them, but just give me a little bit of background, or our audience a little bit of background on what they're going to be seeing this afternoon at the guest of honor.
Want to take that one?
Sure. Every year Econ has a Toastmaster, a Master of Ceremonies, and this year's is John M. McIlvain. Again, another longtime Econer, Econ committee member. He has run the Dealer's Room, which I think other parts of Econ, we have a room for book dealers to sell books, and an art show. We always have an artist guest of honor, and just some tremendous artists come and display their work, and John was the person who actually initially constructed that whole monstrous giant display of panels that we have to plug in and out every year. But John will be interviewing this year's guests of honor are Chuck Wendig, Seanan McGuire, and Paul Tremblay. And as far as what to expect, I wish I could tell you, but it's Mac's show, you know, and he's gonna, I know obviously they're gonna talk about their work. I would suspect their writing process, like what goes into it. Obviously their most recent titles, Paul, clearly Head Full of Ghosts, just came out a few weeks ago, and everyone, gee, why have I been too busy to read Paul's new book recently? Why haven't I gotten to that?
I have never seen buzz on a book like I have with this book, and it's worthy. It's actually justifiable. This is one book where you hear all these good things. It's just friends talking, or it's just Facebook buddies. No, this book is the real deal. So if you haven't read it,
it's on my to-do list shortly after sleep.
And then Chuck Wendig, we actually got some advanced reader copies of his new book that's actually going to be a television series.
Wow, that's great. That's
Blackbird and Mockingbird are the two right now.
And knowing Seanan, she probably wrote 3 stories this morning during breakfast. To call her prolific, or she's the whole indexing series. If you're not into Seanan McGuire, check out Mira Grant, that's her too. And what
she has a Graham, 150, 200.
Yeah, I think again, she's up over triple digits, isn't she? I think Shannon's
pretty close.
If not, she's close. Heather
She's
Graham.
200 from what I understand.
Who is also part of our Econ family, who comes every year, has been a guest, but she comes back every year. So.
Yeah, multi-genre writer in both horror and romance.
Yeah.
In fact, I laugh every time I go into a Walmart or a CVS. Her books are always on the shelves. So yeah, if you're into romance, come on down to a horror conference and see one of the biggest romance writers.
Well, I mean, Craig Shaw Gardner, yeah, he's written some horror, but he mostly does fantasy
Fantasy, yeah.
himself.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say same as, but James A. Moore, who is one of this year's official recognized Econ legends, is the author of the Blasted Land series.
One of the best series I've ever read.
So,
Absolutely.
so yeah, we get around.
What we're gonna do now is we're gonna switch gears a little bit and talk about the business side of Nikon. When I say the business side, we're gonna talk about the book side. I'm gonna start with a general question about a book that's famous. I've never seen this book. I've heard about it. People talk about it all the time. There's supposed to be some unbelievable authors in it, but was it the Big Black Book of Nikon? Or just
The Big Book of Nikon.
the Big Book of Nikon.
Mm-hmm.
Just a little bit of history about this.
I'm trying to think now. When did it come out?
The project started 2008. It came out 2009. Bob announced it in 08, but it was out in 09.
Yeah, so Cemetery Dance contacted Dad and basically, said, we'd like to have as many authors as we can get. So Dad contacted all of our past guests and asked them to submit stories, and it's a phenomenal collection of work from lots of very, very talented writers.
Well, it's also every year we put a program book together and the guests of honor donate a piece for it. And usually it's a reprint or an excerpt from a work in progress, but sometimes there have been original stories. And one of the authors who gave an original story, even he just couldn't find a home for that story, was Stephen King.
Amazing.
So, for years, this original piece of Stephen King's was only available in the 150 folded program books that were passed out at Nikon 3. And Bob, of course, called him and said, "Hey, what do you think of this project? Can we use yours?" And when Stephen said yes, no one said no. After that,
Yeah.
every other call got
With
easy.
Stephen King.
Every other call
Absolutely.
got easy after that one. There was one so full of himself young author who tried to haggle all this stuff, and tried to barter his way into a higher position at Nikon and on the committee and all that stuff. Everybody else was nice about it.
We're gonna jump from the Big Book of Nikon to Kazi's. I wrote it down, I still screwed it up. Kazi's question.
And for the record, Cassie's name makes no sense. I love her, but it makes no sense. Bob passed away 2 years ago after quite a fight with cancer. And right towards the end, when he decided to move into bring hospice in, his exact words were, I want to spend the time I have left writing. He said, and I've got this idea for a story about a cat that can stop the apocalypse. That was the idea, and so he and I talked, as we always did, and spitball ideas, and hey, what about this, what about that, but he was fading fast, and it became very evident he wasn't going to get a chance to put pen to paper, and so one day I asked him, can I take a shot at it, based on all of our conversations, and he said, go for it. And 2 pages in, the story changed dramatically because it became not what your dad thought, it was me dealing with what we were all going through.
Yeah.
And Kazi is Bob Mary's cat, named by Jillian, which is why the female cat with the name Kazi makes no sense. But she was 3 years old, so it became about life and love and loss. And when I wrote it, I thought, I'm just doing this for me. This is part of my healing process.
Sure.
But at the end, after certain people like you nut, you read it right there in your dad's room that
Oh
day.
boy, that must have been heartbreaking.
Absolutely.
She's sitting there crying and what's wrong? What's wrong? It's my fault. It's my fault. But a few said, no, share this. Yeah, this. And it was actually Elizabeth Massey who suggested Keith Minion's White Noise Press. They do some of the most beautiful limited edition chapbooks. So this is illustrated, published by Keith Minion of White Noise Press. I believe there are actually still some copies available at whitenoisepress.com.
There can't be many.
And there aren't many.
No, I was gonna say that was,
But it was
those sell out quickly.
a stunning, just so beautifully put together. Say a story by Bob as written by me.
Thank you. I'm just gonna follow up with, another book question. Nikon ebooks. It's one of the, I can remember going to a Nikon a few years ago and your dad announcing Nikon ebooks.
That was Nikon 30, where he launched the company.
So much applause, and back then, and you can tell me if the mandate has changed, but what you were doing is you were going to some of the authors that had been going to Nikon, that had to be a prerequisite to belong to Nikon or members of Nikon, and reissuing their older work, which was badly needed. I mean, there's such a hole in
It's a donut hole. If they're not, the new books are out, but, as long as it wasn't public domain, that implied you need to, actually pay the authors for their work, and publishers like, well, I'm not gonna go back and do that. Well, paying the authors for their work, it was a phone call for Bob. Hey, can I have digital publishing rights to your backlist? And we put out, Rick Howell, Charlie Grant, so many of these, and, the answer was predominantly yes, so.
Well, you've become one of the two major ebook publishers of horror. Like I said, you provide a service to us fans that can't find the old paperback editions of some of our favorite authors' books.
And we have new stuff too. But again, Nikon authors. You gotta, have a link to us to be part of the family. But Dan Foley has, we have a collection of his
Intruder,
his new novella, Intruder, is, I don't care if I'm plugging. That is a great read. Well, we just got a new manuscript novel a novella, from Trish Kasich, which is fantastic.
Another leisure author, old leisure author, work you can't find. Now you're getting your new stuff.
Yes, so we try to balance. We still do a lot of the reissuing, but let's be honest, eventually, knock on wood, we'll run out of reissues because we'll get everything into the digital world. So we got to land some new fish too.
But it's important that we stress that they have to be Nikon members or part of the Nikon family in order to be published or considered to be published anyways. And if you're a new author or a new writer, you ought to come here. Come to the convention, get yourself in with the group here, and you never know.
That's a professional decision a writer can make, honestly.
Coming here.
I hold that.
Oh, absolutely. If you're a genre writer, whether it's horror or dark fiction or even law, I mean, you got Bracken here, you got Paul Tremblay also writes law, and you got Eric Nunnally. You've got some Chris Irvin.
We mentioned Nick Kaufman.
Kaufman.
Yeah, Chris Irvin isn't with us this year. Even we had to admit we accepted his excuse for missing this Nikon.
Having a child is no reason to miss Nikon.
Yeah, his wife's doing all the work. What's his problem?
Well, do you have anything else to say? Oh, we want to talk about next year. Yes,
Next
we do.
year, absolutely.
Yes.
Next year, our guest of honor is going to be Joe Hill, Stephen
Wow,
King's
yeah, Stephen King's son.
son. Yes, who's a great writer in his own right. And then we also have
Mark Morris and Laura Ann Gilman are writers.
Mark Morris, that's a name. Jeez, that's great.
Yeah, we actually had the invitation out. Joe stopped by one day at Nikon 30 and always said, I can't wait, I want to come back, absolutely, you'll be a guest of honor. This is literally what his schedule is like. It took 6 years for him to have 4 free days in the middle of July.
I can remember, I was at Nikon 30, and I can remember the lines for Lawrence, and it was Lawrence back then.
Yeah.
Just around the corner, waiting.
And I forget the title. He's got a book coming out like next spring. We've got Joe Hill 2 months after his next novel hits the shelves. So
if you've never been, next year's the time to come.
And quickly, next year's artist guest of honor is Rebecca Isaacs. Our Toastmasters are Brett Savory and Sandra Kasturi, who run, is it? Chizine. I never know how to pronounce that. Chizine. And our official recognized legends will be Steve Bissett, and the incomparable Linda Axe.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Linda's a wonderful person.
Wonderful lineup, so.
Well, I personally want to thank you for having me here again as a guest for the 6th year in a row. I look forward to coming to a day that no longer can. So thank you very much.
Thank
I
you.
enjoyed it.
We appreciate all of you.
And if you want to know more, you should check out, it's just campnicon.com. So,
Now, yeah, when did that joke start? Camp Necon, because someone called it summer camp for writers.
And it's stuck.
And
Yeah.
it's stuck.
It's stuck.
It's stuck.
Well, I want to thank you, Matt and Sarah. It's been a great interview.
thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you very much.
following this, we're going to be taping the panel with the guest of honors interviews, and hopefully you'll stick around and give it a listen. And thank you very much.
Interview, and I'm hoping that all of you have read the intros inside the Nikon thing, but I would like each of you to give a quick intro of who you are and tell us something we don't know about you. We'll start with Sean.
Yeah, Chuck set me up for that one.
Yes, he did.
Hi, I'm Shannon McGuire, and I talk a lot, so I don't know if there's anything you don't know. What you may not have realized, despite the giant tub of blueberries I'm toting around, is I managed to find a U-Pick blueberry farm this morning based on completely nonsensical directions from a stranger at the Dunkin' Donuts. And that my friends Rob and Rachel drove me over there and almost lost me in the cornfield because my magical power is teleportation in corn. Also, what none of you know is that Chuck Wendig and I are going to have an egg fight in the cornfield. We're going to have an egg fight.
I don't consent to
Yeah,
egg
you
fight.
don't get to consent to
I will
egg
die.
fight.
I will die. She'll
You,
kill me.
you will. That's true.
Kill me in the
Do you have any idea how much I've been paid to kill you in the corn?
That's what you don't know about me, is she will murder me in the cornfield.
They know now.
I know now. Hi, please send help.
It is not on.
It's not on.
Hey.
Yeah.
No
Hello.
one heard any of what I said. It's
No,
great.
nothing. She's going to kill me. You can all hear that. My name is Chuck Wendig. I write a lot of books, including the Miriam Black series, the Atlanta Burn series, Heartland series. Apparently, I write a lot of series. My upcoming novel is Zeros, and I'm writing the novelization or the novel Star Wars Aftermath, which precedes The Force Awakens. Written film and television and comic books. And the thing you don't know about me is that Sean McGuire is going to murder me before this convention is over.
Yeah, we're good.
Hi, I'm Paul Tremblay. I'm the author of a couple of narcoleptic detective novels called Little Sleep and No Sleep to Wonderland. But my most recent novel out with William Morrow is called A Head Full of Ghosts. If I'm being obnoxious, I'm calling it a postmodern secular exorcism novel, or it's just an exorcism novel, really. What have I never told anybody? You know, I have never told anybody this because it's extremely painful, but I once killed my own sibling in an egg fight once, so I'm actually I'm having a hard time. I'm having a hard time with this. I hope it doesn't happen later.
The struggle is real.
It's gonna happen.
It's gonna happen. The struggle is real. For me.
You've probably heard this question a million times, but when and why did you become a writer? Was it an early, did you know from the beginning, or was it something that came later after college, or what?
For me, it was later. I sort of stumbled into it. As a kid, I really wasn't much of a reader, but I don't know. I feel like I have a strange sort of childhood compared to most writers. I mean, I grew up in a family that was very competitive and liked sports, even though we weren't very good at it. So I grew up wanting to be Larry Bird. So skinny, 5'8" me, 110 pounds, soaking wet, was just out in my backyard every day pretending I was Larry Bird. I didn't play Dungeons and Dragons. I played the baseball version of it, called Baseball Stratomatic, where you get a card for each of the players and you roll dice. And there's no food or anything, but depending on what the dice do, they get a hit or they strike out. I don't know. I was a math major in college just because I was good at it. And then second semester, senior year, so one of my last classes I took an English class. And in that class I read Joyce Carol Oates' Where Are You Going, Where Have You Been? And I remember just being my initial reaction to it was wow, I didn't know people wrote stuff like this. And then my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, started feeding me Stephen King novels, and I spent 2 years in grad school barely getting my master's in math, but reading every Stephen King novel, then Peter Straub, Shirley Jackson, more Joyce Carol Oates. And at the end of 2 years, I had a math degree, a math teaching job, and an itch to try writing a short story.
So when I was a kid and you would go and you wanted to watch a movie, right, you would go to a video store. And the video store was just a cabinet of curiosities for a little kid like me. I was 8 years old and I went in there, and my mother was not well trained in pop culture. So I'm like, there's this movie called Alien. That sounds innocuous. We can rent this, right? She's like, whatever, just put it on the couch. So I took home Alien and then promptly destroyed my tiny brain. Simultaneously upset and glorious, like, this is glorious. Like just this whole roller coaster ride of emotion. And the first thing that I really remember writing and drawing, because apparently I was making comic books at the time, was a Xenomorph versus Pac-Man comic. I don't know why those two things should ever fight. I guess the mouths, maybe. I'm not really sure what it is, but somehow something in that spoke to me, and I was really into that. At that time, I didn't know I wanted to be a writer. I didn't know that was a thing you could do. But in high school, then, actually junior high in particular, I was sort of, I was reading a lot of novels at that point, and Brian Keene earlier was talking about comic books, and he realized that, holy shit, there's people who actually do this, and like, I can get paid for this. And I was starting to kind of get into that vibe, and I didn't know if I wanted to do that or not with my life. And the teacher at the time was this pain-in-the-ass teacher named Mrs. Kane. She was one of those people who make you hate reading. Like, she just destroys any love of it. She might have actually been some sort of evil creature who was trying to steal your love of creativity and words. So at one point, I had been mainlining a bunch of Robert McCammon at that point, and I was writing short stories. And in one of the short stories, I used a word probably very familiar to horror fans. I used the word rictus. And she was like, that is not a real word. And she like gave me an F, and I was like, it is, excuse me. It's a bad word, but it is. It's a real word. And I like took out all my books and I like underlined rictus in all of them the next day, and I brought them in. And then I was like, I'm going to be a writer to spite you. Someday I'm going to do this, and you will see. Rictus.
So amusingly, one of my earliest memories, I'm like 3, I'm sitting on my Uncle Mike's lap in our front room, and he's watching a movie on TV, and these men in funny-looking white suits are walking through a big cavern, and there are these neat leather eggs, and one of them is starting to open, and maybe a friend is going to come out, and that's going to be really exciting. And that's when my mother walked in and said a lot of bad words in the process of saying, oh my God, my 3-year-old daughter is watching Alien with you. I honestly thought that books were kind of like lunchboxes in Oz. I thought they grew on trees until I was like 6. And then I was watching an episode of Ray Bradbury Presents, which was this TV show that every episode opened with Ray Bradbury at his typewriter typing, and then he'd pull the page out of the typewriter and throw it in the air, and it would become part of the logo. And I asked, who the hell is that old dude, and why is he in the middle of my TV show? And my grandmother said, well, that's Ray Bradbury. He wrote all the stories. And I was like, wait, what? That's an option? We're allowed? So I decided I was going to be a writer because I wanted to have a TV show. Because I was, 6. And I gave myself migraines trying to write because my hands could not keep up with my brain at all. So they bought me a typewriter. And it was this big old manual typewriter that weighed more than I did and sounded like machine gun fire. And if ever my mother... Wow, I'm getting some great feedback. Hello, what are you doing? Ooh, okay, there, nope, not there. Apparently the microphone just really wants to cause you all to go deaf with the delightful subsonic squeaking. I apologize. Thank you. So I would sit in my room and start typing whenever the whim struck me, which was often at 3 a.m. because 6-year-olds are not good at sleeping. And it would just suddenly, the mob battle would break out in my bedroom. Bam, 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 I'll get you, coppers. And my mother's a thin apartment wall over, just kind of going, she's really smart. She's really smart. Maybe someday she'll move. So yeah, and then I found Stephen King. And a huge number of Stephen King's characters, especially in the 80s, were writers. You know, he was writing about writers because that's what he knew. And I really, really wanted to live in a Stephen King book. So I decided that if I became a writer, maybe I too could find a nightmare clown with influenza hanging out in the sewer, or something equally neat. So yeah, I became a writer because I wanted a TV show and I wanted to live in a Stephen King novel.
With murder clowns.
With murder clowns, yeah.
Hold that mic. All right, October Day is a very intriguing character. If you haven't read the series, read
Have
it.
you?
I've read, yes. Yeah, I told you about it. I read number 2 thinking it was number 1.
yeah.
And it does stand alone, so you can grab any one.
No,
but
you really can't.
well, later on, okay.
After
Listen
like
to her,
book
she knows
5,
better.
I stopped trying. Like if you pick up book 7 in a series and you haven't read any of them, you don't want me and I don't want you. Please go back to book 1.
All right. I stand corrected. All right. But October is, she's fallible like all of us, and she goes from being this very sweet person to being a very kind of a hard-ass, noir detective type character.
She's
And
really bad at her job.
yes, well, I thought she was pretty good. But what inspired you with October?
I got stuck on top of the Moon Bridge in the Japanese tea gardens, which is a literal thing. It's a bridge that's like climbing the freaking golden arches at McDonald's, and I got stuck on top of it and no one could get me down for like 2 hours. And after we passed through the crying stage, as I realized that no one was going to get me down, I just watched the koi for a long time. Like, it's not, I let my subconscious do what my subconscious wants to do, and sometimes it gives me stuff. I don't really, what inspired it? Well, I think the 7 years of following the Counting Crows up and down the California coast probably did some damage. I hit my head a couple times, and once I licked a toad. Yeah.
So she's not based on any.
No, that would be plagiarism and illegal.
Well, I meant real life character.
Oh God, no, that would be defamation and illegal. No, oh God, no. So it's actually really awkward because I think all authors kind of get the do you put yourself in your books,
Yeah.
but female authors get a lot of, oh, is this wish fulfillment for you? Yeah, I really wish to have the crap kicked out of me on a daily basis. That is my biggest fantasy. A wish fulfillment for me, someone paints my house. I get a new kitten and it doesn't have to be litter box trained. I sleep. So yeah, there's no good story there.
All right. I thought it
Here,
was
you
a good
tell your
story.
bad story.
No.
Yeah. Well, yes, you do. All right, you have a character called Marion Black, who is also a very intriguing character. She's a very damaged person, but she has this I guess you wouldn't call it a talent, it's almost a curse, right? And she can, she knows when you're going to die and how you're going to die when she touches you. So you don't want her touching you.
Or do you?
Or do you? Yeah.
Maybe you do.
So, what is your inspiration behind Marion?
Before I wrote the Marion Black books, I'd written 5 finished horrible novels, novels so bad. When they call them trunk novels, they should call them, mine are in a lead-lined trunk and buried in my backyard, toxic airborne.
I have a shovel.
You have a shovel. We need to, yeah, do not unearth them.
Why are you hiding my blueberries?
You can move your blueberries. They are free. Free blueberries. There came a point when I was like, I don't know how to do this thing anymore. I've tried writing all these books, and I tried writing books in other people's voices and to chase a market and to chase my idea of what would get published, and none of that really worked. And there came a point when I sort of hit bottom, and I was like, look, screw this. I'm going to write whatever book I want to write. And all around me at that time, I was not young, but still, in my 20s at that point where I'm starting to sort of conceive of this idea, and people around me were dying. I don't mean I was in war, but I mean just the normal everyday, hey, I've got some aunts who've got some cancer, and my grandmother's got some cancer, and my dad now has some cancer. Okay, well, he's gonna die too. So there was this sense of death, and then that sense of death radiates inward, and you're like, oh wait, no, I'm gonna die too. That's you have that sense of morality or mortality periodically, but as a teenager, you're just an idiot. That's why we drive fast and do stupid things as a teenager, because you don't think necessarily that is going to come home. And so I had this massive crisis of like life. I'm like, well, that's horrible. We're all just meat puppets disintegrating into the earth. Good. Okay, I'm just gonna lay down and wait for it to come. And so I created this character, Miriam Black. She was sort of a power fantasy, but a power fantasy gone wrong, and that she can see how you're gonna die, but is there any way she can do anything about that? And initially, the book sort of posits that maybe she can't. What happens to a person who can see that we're all gonna die, but then has no theoretical power to do anything about it? And so she lives life as a thief. She sees you're gonna die, and then once you die, she comes and steals your business. Credit cards, whatever, your shoes, she'll take anything from you. So, but the book is sort of taking her through that journey of finding that power, and finding what you can do to twist fate, and what the sacrifices you have to make to sort of change these epic things in your life. So, I mean, it's a simple, really, there's obviously the idea that all fiction is in some way about death, and certainly this one is very much so about death.
All right, Paul, of course, in A Head Full of Ghosts, you tell the novel from the perspective of Mary, who's 8 years old at the time,
Right.
But 20 years later. Why did you choose Mary as the narrator?
Well, I guess really quickly, when I got the idea of the novel itself, I was actually working on a totally different novel that I may go back to. And the novel was called Charles Manson Doesn't Answer My Letters. Yeah, that's a good title. I have to do something with that.
It does for one
And it was gonna be like this weird, like apocalyptic kind of thing, and sort of. And so I was reading as much as I could on scary stuff, apocalyptic stuff, and somehow I thought ordering Centipede Press's beautiful book, The Exorcist: Studies in the Night film, would be in some way related to the book that I was working on. And so I started reading all these essays about the movie and the book, The Exorcist. All these essays that sort of broke down sort of the politics of the movie. There's a great little investigative journalism essay about how this journalist went back to try to find the supposed original case that inspired the movie and the book, and it was total BS. So I started thinking for the first time, like the horror market. I was like, wow, it just sort of occurred to me. No one's really done a new sort of literary possession novel. Like, the zombies, certainly there's been a ton of books with zombies recently, vampires, werewolves. But, I couldn't really think of that many possession story novels. So it's like, how would I do that? My first thought was I wanted to write it from a very skeptical, secular point of view. And so I wanted to do it from a point of view, like the character's point of view was going to be removed, like one person removed. So this 14-year-old girl named Marjorie may or may not be possessed. And I was going to tell the story from the point of view of her younger sister. Through different stages of her life, and so that's sort of where Mary came from. And Mary is named after Merricat Blackwood from We Have Always Lived in the Castle. I mean, it's a definite. And that was sort of the fun part of the book for me was once I decided I was going to write an exorcism novel, I couldn't duck or hide from The Exorcist and all the other Hollywood movies. So I decided just to have fun and just totally roll around like a dog and poop. In all of horror recently, and it was freeing. It was a lot of fun.
All right, and that kind of segues into another question, which
Poop.
yes.
It's poop time.
About the exorcism in novels, vampires are used to death, and zombies, and why do you feel it is that exorcism isn't, especially by the big publishers, isn't used as often? You can put it on this. If you
Well, so I would say the funny thing is, like, so we've had, zombies everywhere, vampires, even werewolves. There's been a ton of werewolf novels lately. There's been a ton of possession exorcism movies, especially within like the last, 5 to 10 years. But so that was the question I was asking myself, was why have we had all these like PG-13 sort of lukewarm possession movies, but there haven't been a ton of books. I mean, I would recommend post the year 2000, Sarah Grand's Closer, is it Come Closer? Come Closer is amazing, and Daryl Gregory's Pandemonium is really good as well. So I don't know. I mean, because I think for the tropes of horror, I mean, The Exorcist just looms so large. I mean, it really was that movie. I mean, Rosemary's Baby a few years before that, but The Exorcist really sort of ushered in the 70s horror movie sort of boom / movement. I mean, it changed film, it changed horror. So it's such a big thing. I think it's hard to. Maybe it's intimidating to try to write an exorcism story with that thing there, that not so, the elephant in the room, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I knew I couldn't write a story without addressing it in some way.
Thank you. You have anything on that? No? All right, a question for all three of you. And, all three of you do a very busy blog. And do you find that helps you in your writing, or does it interfere with your writing?
I have a blog, terribleminds.com, and we have about 8,000 daily subscribers, 10,000 roughly daily visitors, so it's a pretty well-trafficked blog, especially since it started with effectively nothing. It doesn't really help and it doesn't really hurt. It's just something I want to do, and there's this thing in publishing where publishers will tell authors, like, you need to be blogging. And I'm like, ugh. Who wants to read the blog of a person who's blogging because their publisher told them to blog? That person's never, first of all, they're never going to keep up with it. They're going to do that one thing where, like, I checked this blog and I've blogged since November 2012, and I clean out all the cobwebs and the dead birds that have gathered there. And like, now I'm blogging again, and then another 6 months goes by and there's no blog. Because you don't really want to do that. I mean, it's like writing a novel. Like, I blog because I want to. Like, I blog because I'm yelling at me about me, often to me, and me-focused topics. And sometimes that means there's an audience listening because they find that also interesting in some way. It doesn't really hinder. I mean, sometimes because I do it weekly and because I try to get 5 blog posts up every week. Sometimes it can be a little time-consuming, but I have a pretty practiced schedule and I know where that fits in and how to do it. And sometimes I accept guest posts and stuff too, so it keeps it going and keeps me interested and keeps me engaged with the community. It's not really necessarily a thing that makes my writing better or a thing that necessarily makes me. Sometimes it'll give me professional connections because I have sometimes unusual fans amongst writers or publishers or editors, but otherwise it's not really a super necessary thing. It's just a thing I like to do.
I hope you enjoyed tonight's show from Bristol, Rhode Island and Nikon. It was a great interview with Matt and Sarah, and I hope you enjoyed the guest of honor panel. We're going to have more for you coming up in the next show. And thank you for watching, and we hope to see you next week. Thank you very much.